This News of the Nation is News of the Nation number 16 about a man named Francisco Vázquez de Coronado, or as you can see here in the title, they just refer to him as his last name, Coronado. And the title says, Coronado explores Western America for Spain. The years that he explored were 1540 to 1542. And before we get to the story, we're going to take a look at our questions on the back so we know what we're looking for. And before we even get to that, you can see here from the picture, it says Coronado's expedition. Coronado's exploration party set out from Mexico to find the 7 cities of Cibola, also known as 7 cities of gold. They found the Grand Canyon and explored much of southwestern America. So here is Mexico. They're going to leave from Mexico and and travel throughout what is now Mexico and into the southwestern part of the United States, into Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, even into parts of Kansas and onto the Great Plains. And we'll find out whether they find those cities of gold or not. Our questions that we're listening for, number 1, 2, and 3, we have to find out whether these are true or false statements. Coronado and his men found villages whose houses were covered with gold. We have to find out whether that was a true thing or not, or whether it was just a myth and made up. 2, 1,000 natives came with Coronado and his men on their journey. 3, one group of Coronado's men discovered the Grand Canyon. So we have to find out whether those are true or false statements. Number 4, 5, and 6 are going to be multiple choice. Number 4, the exploring party headed by Coronado was searching for A, the Grand Canyon, B, the 7 cities of Cibola, or the 7 cities of gold, or C, the Mississippi River. Number 5, Coronado and his men traveled through lands A, filled with English settlers, B, that no white men had ever visited, or C, covered with gold. And 6, the lands Coronado explored, A, were then held by Spain for more than 200 years, B, were rejected by Spain because they were useless, or C, were claimed by England. And we have our vocabulary words. We have the definitions down here. We have to match our vocabulary words up with. So we have to find out what vocabulary word goes with the definition of beautiful, out of the ordinary. And no, it's not Mr. Daniels. Just kidding. Number 8, a huge gorge of the Colorado River located in what is now Arizona. We have to find out what that area is called. Number 9, we have to find the word that goes with an Indian village built out of adobe, clay, or stone. And 10, we have to find out the vocabulary word that goes with the definition, a mixture of cement, sand, and water used for building. So I'm going to read the definitions and the words up here. Pueblo is an Indian village built out of adobe, clay, or stone. And we learned about Pueblo homes earlier on this year, back in September. The Grand Canyon is that huge gorge or huge ditch of the Colorado River located in what is now Arizona. And then mortar is a mixture of cement, sand, and water used for building. On our front, we have the word splendid, and splendid means beautiful or out of the ordinary. So now I'm going to read to you about Coronado explores Western America for Spain, and of course this happened from the years 1540 to 1542. In 1540, an exploring party set out from Mexico. At the head rode the leader, Francisco de Coronado. Drums rolled and the Spanish flag flew overhead. Behind Coronado were other men riding splendid horses. They were followed by 1,000 brightly dressed natives. The company was off to find the 7 cities of Cibola, also known as the 7 cities of gold. Stories had reached Mexico about these cities, whose houses were said to be covered with gold. Coronado led his men far to the north and east. They traveled through country never before visited by white men. One group of Coronado's men found the Grand Canyon. More than once, the sun reflected on a Pueblo village so that from a distance it appeared like gold, but it actually was not made out of gold. Coronado and his men would rush to the village only to find stone and mortar huts and poor village natives. Coronado did not find the lost cities of gold, but the lands he explored were claimed and held by Spain for more than 200 years, and it became known as the colony of New Spain that I showed you in the video. And speaking of the video and the slideshow, I'm going to read to you a little bit more about the biography of Francisco Vázquez de Coronado. He lived from about the years 1510 to about the year 1554, so he was about 44 years old when he died. Francisco Vázquez de Coronado was one of the leaders of the Spanish explorations in North America. He was born in Spain sometime around the year 1510. We don't know for sure. In the years following Coronado's birth, Spain was making her first discoveries and conquests in the New World. The lands she took, remember these are Native American lands, were called New Spain. Coronado went to New Spain and was made governor of a part of Mexico. As a ruler, Coronado was able, but was often harsh and cruel to the Indians. So he did a decent job, but he was harsh and cruel, especially to the Native Americans. His great work was as an explorer. The Spaniards, or the people of the Spanish in Mexico, had heard many exciting stories about cities to the north called the Seven Cities of Cibola. These cities were supposed to be very beautiful and fabulously rich. Coronado was sent to lead an expedition to find these cities and to seize or capture the riches for Spain, so he's going to steal or take them. With his men, Coronado traveled far to the north and explored the lands that now form the southwestern states of the United States: New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, and Oklahoma. But the rich cities of the stories turned out to be only poor Indian villages of the Pueblo Indians. Coronado had to return to Mexico, where he died in 1554, disappointed in his search for gold. The Spanish government was disappointed too. It was not until many years afterward that people realized what a great journey Coronado had made and what a great territory he had conquered for Spain. Remember, he conquered and took it from the Native Americans. And some of those Native Americans, we knew them, we learned about them earlier this year as the Cliff Dwellers. So Pueblo Indians built impressive communities with as many as 200 rooms and 23 ceremonial kivas. Coronado surely found many of these villages as he searched for the lost cities of Cibola. And of course, we learned about those earlier this year, made from the red-colored clay known as adobe. And during this time period too, this one doesn't have anything to do with Coronado, but there was a heated discussion over licensing of doctors during this time period around the 1500s. Before that, people did not need a license to become doctors, and now they're arguing whether they should or not. So in 1509, attempts are being made to restrict medical practice to doctors who have a medical license. So you would need a medical license in order to practice medicine. Some of the patients who are actively pushing the issue feel that licensing will ensure they receive proper and safe treatment. Doctors who are in favor of licensing feel that trust in the medical profession might be lost if bad doctors are allowed to practice. Some doctors are afraid, however, that licensing procedures could be unfair and that some good doctors might not be allowed to practice. So during this time period over in Europe, they were arguing whether or not doctors should have a license in order to practice their medicine. Now, of course, we learn about Coronado and his men being the first Europeans to see the Grand Canyon. We're going to read about how one of them became the first man to throw a rock a mile. How did he do that, you say? Well, here's how. Coronado stepped up to the rim of the Grand Canyon and gasped. It's probably a mile to the bottom, he estimated. He threw a rock and it sailed down, 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 and out of sight. He listened. No echo. His group marveled at the incredible beauty before them. That evening, he wrote in his journal, "Today I threw a rock a mile. This is small payment for not finding the lost cities of Cibola," he marked with bitterness. So after actually throwing a rock a mile, he's throwing it into the Grand Canyon, and it's probably not a mile, but at least a couple hundred feet from the bottom of the Grand Canyon to the upper rim. And here's another article, Gold, God, and Glory. Many of the early Spanish explorers were sent to the New World to find gold. They had heard tales of Indian or Native American towns so rich that homes were built of gold. They also knew the tales of the fabulous 7 cities of gold, supposedly located in the American Southwest. Also of importance to the Spanish was missionary work. The Spaniards wanted to convert or change the native beliefs to those of Christianity, specifically Roman Catholicism or the Catholic religion. Finally, Spanish explorers saw an opportunity to win glory for themselves and for their country by going to the New World. These explorers came to be called the conquistadors or the conquerors. So the conquerors, the conquistadors, their main goals were gold, God, switching the Native Americans over to, or converting the Native Americans over to Christianity, and also glory, getting fame for themselves. And then this last little picture here with the caption says, Coronado looks for lost cities. In 1540, the legend of the 7 cities of gold caused the viceroy, or the governor of Mexico, to send out a huge expedition headed by Francisco Vázquez de Coronado. Coronado traveled more than 3,000 miles into the heartland of America. They wandered from Arizona to the Mississippi and pushed as far north as Kansas. And once again, to review, here was that route that he took, going from Mexico into the southwestern part of the United States, Arizona, Texas, going into probably Kansas, and even into the Great Plains as well, was his route. He didn't find the cities of gold, but he did explore much of the Southwest and took that land from the Native Americans and claimed it for Spain, making the colony of New Spain. So that is our article about Coronado exploring Western America for Spain, looking for those cities of gold.